I want you to imagine a scenario. Just put yourself in this room for a second.
Okay.
You are sitting across from a recruiter at a massive, highly sought-after tech company. The room is sleek, the view out the window is incredible, and the tension is palpable. You've made it through 6 rounds of brutal interviews.
Right. The hard part is supposedly over.
Exactly. And they slide the glossy offer letter across the table to you. You glance down. It has everything you'd expect, a really great base salary, some solid equity in the company. But then right there in the compensation breakdown, sitting right underneath the healthcare benefits, is something entirely different.
Something new.
A monthly allowance of 50 million AI tokens.
It really does sound like a scene from a near-future science fiction novel.
Totally.
But this is not the future. I mean, this is exactly what is happening right now in the upper echelons of the tech industry. We are witnessing a fundamental transformation in how human value and digital resources are negotiated at the hiring table.
Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. Today, we're pulling apart a truly fascinating shift in the professional world, using this incredible excerpt titled The New Currency of Compute.
It's a great piece.
It really is. And the mission of our deep dive today is to explore exactly what this means for you. We are going to look at how processing power, literally the raw compute, is radically reshaping the job market, how employees are compensated, and honestly, the sheer survival mechanics of a modern career.
It touches every aspect of the job.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the idea of server access as a signing bonus is just wild to me. And just to ground this before we go any further, when we say 50 million tokens, what are we actually talking about?
That's a crucial starting point. Because it sounds abstract, right?
Yeah, it sounds like arcade money.
Right. But a token, in the context of these artificial intelligence models, is basically a piece of a word. It's a fundamental unit of data the AI processes. So an allowance of 50 million tokens isn't just a number on a spreadsheet.
What does it translate to in the real world?
It translates to roughly 35 to 40 million words of processing power that your brain gets to outsource every single month.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, that is the equivalent of reading the entire Harry Potter series about 30 times over every 4 weeks.
That's insane.
And having a machine instantly synthesize, analyze, or generate that exact volume of information on your behalf.
Which is an unimaginable amount of cognitive leverage. And that brings us to the first massive shift we are seeing in workplace culture, the official demise of the ping pong table.
Yes, the perks are changing.
It seems like AI tokens are becoming far, far more desirable than those traditional startup perks. And we all remember that era, right?
The 2010s tech boom.
Exactly. The nap pods, the kombucha on tap, the indoor rock climbing walls.
The era of lifestyle perks. If we look back, those perks were specifically designed to make the office feel like a home.
To keep you there.
Exactly. The underlying psychological play was to blur the line between work and leisure, so that you would essentially never want to leave the campus. But the dynamic has pivoted sharply.
It's a completely different vibe now.
Workers are effectively communicating. I don't care about the ping pong table. I care about my compute.
I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and the closest thing I can come up with is the old school company car. Or maybe a massive corporate expense account.
That's a good way to look at it.
But instead of an expense account for taking clients out to fancy steak dinners, it is an expense account for your brain.
Right.
It's a raw computational allowance that extends your cognitive reach. And this isn't just a nice to have anymore. AI compute is now being viewed as the fourth pillar of tech compensation.
The fourth pillar. Let's think about what those first 3 pillars are.
Okay.
You have your base salary, which is your guaranteed survival and lifestyle money. You have your bonus, which is your short-term performance incentive.
Yeah.
And you have your equity, which is your long-term stake in the overall success of the enterprise. For decades, those 3 pillars were the absolute holy trinity of corporate compensation.
But now, compute sits right alongside them. Salary, bonus, equity, and compute. It is just fascinating to think about negotiating that. Imagine sitting there and saying, sure, the salary is great, but my token allowance is a little light.
It happens every day now.
But let me stop you there and play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, the factory provides the machines, right?
Sure.
If I get hired to dig a ditch, I don't negotiate the size of the shovel. It's the company's job to give me the tools I need to do the work. So why is the employee suddenly the one fighting for the compute?
That is the exact right question to ask. The reason you have to negotiate for the shovel now is because this particular shovel isn't a fixed one-time cost like a piece of metal or a software license.
Right.
It is an infinitely variable, highly expensive resource. We're seeing a transition from lifestyle perks, things that just make the job more pleasant, to absolute necessities required for actually doing the job.
Because a ping pong table doesn't make you work faster.
A ping pong table does not make you write better code or synthesize data faster. It's actually a distraction. Compute, on the other hand, is the very tool of creation.
It's the engine.
The company is essentially providing a digital exoskeleton. And the strength of that exoskeleton is now a heavily negotiated contract term because of how much it costs to run.
A digital exoskeleton. That is the perfect way to visualize it, because if you have a weak exoskeleton, you just cannot lift as much as the person sitting at the desk next to you.
You can't compete.
And that brings us directly into the career survival aspect of this. Here's where it gets really interesting. Candidates are acutely aware of this exoskeleton dynamic.
Very aware.
Right now, engineers at top firms like OpenAI are reporting that candidates are actively sitting in interviews and asking, point blank, how much dedicated compute do I get?
It is a brilliant and highly defensive interview question. It shows that these candidates deeply understand the changing physics of their own industry.
Yeah.
They are not asking for a massive compute allowance out of greed or ego. They are asking for it out of pure professional self-preservation.
Right. Because the harsh reality is this. If you don't have the compute, you cannot build as fast as the next person. You are essentially entering a productivity race, and you are asking the prospective employer if they are going to give you a sports car or a bicycle.
And you don't want the bicycle.
If you are stuck on a bicycle, it really does not matter how hard you pedal. The person in the sports car is going to lap you.
And that leads us to a pivotal insight from the source material. There is a concept from tech executive Greg Brockman, which we can call the Greg Brockman principle.
Okay, lay it on us.
The core idea is simple but profound. Inference compute drives productivity.
Inference compute. Let's make sure we clearly define that for everyone listening, because we hear a lot about AI training, the massive data centers churning for months to build these models.
Right, the training phase.
But inference compute is different, right?
Exactly. Inference compute is the live, real-time brain power the AI uses when you hit enter.
Okay.
It's the processing power applied in that specific moment to generate a response, write a block of code, or solve your specific problem. It is the engine of a worker's daily output.
Got it. So the training is sending the AI to college, but the inference is the AI actually sitting at the desk doing the work with you.
Precisely. What's fascinating here is how this creates a completely new vector for career risk. Let's break down the logic of this vicious cycle.
Let's do it.
Imagine you are an employee, and for whatever reason, maybe you're at a smaller startup with a tight budget, or maybe you just didn't realize you needed to negotiate this in your interview, you are capped on your tokens.
So I have a strict limit on my compute allowance.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm capped. I'm working hard, but I hit my limit by Thursday afternoon. Now what? Let me push back here again. If I hit my limit by Thursday, doesn't that just mean I'm bad at prompting?
How do you mean?
Shouldn't I just be more efficient with my tokens instead of demanding more? Like, measure twice, cut once?
It's a fair assumption, but it fundamentally misunderstands the complexity of modern knowledge work. It isn't just about being wasteful with your words.
Okay.
It is about the sheer volume of iterations required to solve hard problems. If your peer has an uncapped allowance, they can run 10 complex multi-step simulations to find the absolute optimal solution.
While I'm stuck doing what?
While you are meticulously agonizing over crafting one single prompt just to save your tokens, your output inevitably drops.
Because I'm overthinking the tool instead of using it.
Exactly. You are suddenly forced to rely entirely on your own unassisted cognitive speed, which, in a world of AI-assisted developers, is agonizingly slow.
Wow. Okay, I see it now. And think about your own daily workflow, listening to this right now. If the core platform you rely on, whether that's your CRM, your design software, or even just your email goes down for an hour, you feel completely paralyzed,
Well,
right?
can't do anything.
Now imagine that paralysis isn't a network outage. It's a budget limit your boss deliberately set on your account.
And the cascading effects of that paralysis are severe. Because your output drops, your performance reviews suffer.
Yeah, the data doesn't lie.
You objectively look less productive than the engineer down the hall who negotiated that uncapped allowance. And because you look less productive, you are not getting promoted.
So your entire career trajectory, your promotions, your future earning potential, it's all directly tied to your employer's server budget.
It is.
If they are cheap on the back-end server costs, you pay the price in your career progression.
It is a terrifying prospect for a worker.
Yeah.
Your professional worth is being throttled by an invisible digital ceiling.
That's rough.
You could genuinely be the most talented individual in the room. But if you are starved of inference compute, you will appear mediocre on paper.
Because the baseline has moved.
The tool has become so overwhelmingly powerful that lacking it is an insurmountable disadvantage. That is exactly why they are demanding it in the interviews. They are securing their right to be productive.
It's like being a master carpenter, but the company only gives you a dull handsaw, while the new guy gets a state-of-the-art laser-guided power saw.
Perfect analogy.
Of course the new guy's going to build more houses. And of course he's going to get the promotion. It makes perfect sense why candidates are treating this with the same gravity as their base salary.
It really does.
But as much as this sounds incredibly stressful for the employee, the dynamic flips completely when we look at the other side of the table. It turns out this is an absolute nightmare for the employers too.
Yes, the perspective shifts dramatically when you move from the talent side to the management side. Specifically, the financial management side.
The CFO's nightmare. We have some specific math from the source on this that we really need to break down.
The numbers are staggering.
Just imagine a top-tier developer. They are earning a massive salary. Let's use $375,000 as the example base.
Which is a huge investment for a company just to get the person in the door.
Right. But then, because they are working at light speed, constantly querying the models, generating code, and analyzing data, they end up burning through another $100,000 just in API calls.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can instantly see why chief financial officers are sweating.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to clarify for our listeners, an API call is basically your computer tapping the AI server on the shoulder and asking it to perform a task.
Right, and every single tap costs a fraction of a cent.
Exactly. A fraction of a cent sounds negligible. But when your digital exoskeleton allows you to tap that server millions of times a day, those fractions of a cent compound aggressively.
They add up fast.
Traditionally, an employee's cost was largely fixed. You negotiate a $375,000 salary, maybe you factor in benefits, desk space, and software licenses, and you have a very predictable number for your quarterly budget.
Yeah.
You know exactly what that human being costs the enterprise.
It's a spreadsheet with a neat, predictable little cell.
But now, that neat little cell has exploded. The cost of an employee is no longer just their salary. It includes this astronomical, entirely variable cost of their digital output.
It's tied to their speed.
The faster they work, the more expensive they become on a daily basis.
That is such a wild paradox. Usually in any business, you want your employees to work as fast as physically possible.
Efficiency is usually the goal.
But now, if they work faster, they are literally draining the company's bank account in real time. They are ringing up a $100,000 tab just on server requests. It's like finding out your star employee is secretly using the company credit card to charter a private jet for their daily commute.
A very expensive commute.
Except the jet is a server rack in Nevada. The overhead is just staggering.
And this brings us to the ultimate conclusion regarding the employer's dilemma. How does a business possibly justify that kind of massive variable computing overhead on top of a premium salary?
It's a tough sell.
The answer is stark. You got to be a 10x developer to justify it.
A 10x developer. We've heard that mythic term in Silicon Valley for years. The idea of this one genius coder who can sit in a basement and do the work of 10 average engineers.
The unicorn.
It used to be a compliment, a way to describe a really talented, highly efficient coworker. But looking at the economics of this new compute currency, it doesn't feel like a compliment anymore. It feels like a threat.
It has absolutely transitioned from a cultural archetype to a strict financial prerequisite. Think about the math we just discussed.
The nearly $500,000.
Exactly. If you are costing the company nearly $500,000 between your salary and your compute burn, average output is a failure.
Wow.
Even good output is a failure.
Yeah.
You have to produce at an exponential rate just to break even on the investment the company's making in your digital infrastructure.
Oh, wait. If everyone has access to these AI tools, isn't everyone technically producing 10 times more volume? Why is the pressure so high if the AI is doing the heavy lifting?
Because volume alone is actually dangerous.
How so?
If you use your $100,000 compute allowance to generate 1 million lines of mediocre code, you haven't helped the company. You've created a massive liability.
Oh, because someone has to clean it up.
Exactly. A human has to review that code, test it, and fix the bugs. If your AI-generated output is flawed, you are creating technical debt at light speed.
That makes a lot of sense.
You must be a 10x developer because the output must be virtually flawless, not just fast. The baseline of what is considered acceptable work has fundamentally shifted.
Can you imagine the intense psychological pressure that puts on the modern tech worker?
It's immense.
You sit down at your desk on a Monday morning, and you know that every keystroke, every prompt you write, every complex problem you ask the model to solve is visibly costing the company money.
There is a literal financial meter running on your thoughts.
You aren't just trying to do a good job anymore. You are trying to mathematically out-earn your own API burn rate.
It completely changes the psychological landscape of the workplace. It forces a hyper-efficiency that leaves very little room for error, experimentation, or even learning.
Because learning involves making mistakes.
In the past, you might spend an afternoon tinkering with a new coding language or testing a wild hypothesis just to see if it works.
Right, the classic sandbox environment.
But now, if you use your compute allowance to go down a blind alley or test a hypothesis that fails, you have just wasted highly expensive tokens. The pressure to only execute on proven high-value tasks is immense.
You can't just tinker anymore. Tinkering costs thousands of dollars. It is fascinating how a tool that was ostensibly designed to make our lives easier and our work faster has somehow ratcheted up the baseline expectations to an almost impossible standard.
It's the irony of the situation.
When the tools empower everyone to do more, doing more is no longer an advantage. It is just the bare minimum requirement for keeping your seat at the table.
That is the ultimate paradox of technological acceleration. We build tools to save time, but the economy instantly absorbs that saved time and demands higher output.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today, peeling back the layers on a really complex shift in the professional world. So what does this all mean? Let's synthesize this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We are seeing a massive paradigm shift where compute is no longer just some background utility managed by the IT department. It is front and center. It is a highly coveted form of compensation, taking its rightful place as the fourth pillar alongside salary, bonus, and equity.
It is also a critical career bottleneck. As we discussed, a lack of access to this new currency directly translates to a drop in productivity, which stalls your career advancement.
It's a locker.
And finally, it is a massive, highly unpredictable corporate expense that is forcing CFOs to demand heroic, flawless, 10x levels of output from their staff just to justify the server costs.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword. You absolutely need it to survive in the modern workforce, but once you have it, you are expected to perform daily miracles to pay for it.
That sums it up perfectly.
Now, I want to turn this over to you, listening to this right now. We've been talking heavily about the tech world today, about developers, API calls, and AI tokens. But I want you to reflect on your own industry, whatever that may be.
The principles definitely transfer.
What is the compute in your field? What is that invisible, highly restricted resource that dictates exactly how fast you can move, how much you can produce, and ultimately whether or not you get promoted?
Think about what happens to your career trajectory if you don't have access to it.
And the person sitting at the desk next to you does.
That is a crucial exercise for anyone navigating a modern career. Because while the specific terminology of AI tokens might be hyper-specific to technology right now, the underlying dynamic of resource-gated productivity is universal across all knowledge work.
It's everywhere.
Identifying that critical resource in your own domain is the very first step to ensuring you aren't quietly left behind.
Exactly. Find your compute and fight for it at the negotiating table. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. We've seen today that career advancement increasingly requires massive compute, and that this massive compute costs an absolute fortune.
A literal fortune.
If this trend continues to accelerate, will we eventually see a totally new kind of class divide in the broader workforce? A professional hierarchy determined not by your education, not by your years of experience, or even your raw work ethic,
but determined entirely by who is allowed to access the most processing power.
It's a heavy thought, but based on what we've unpacked today, it might just be the reality we're all walking into. Something to ponder as you navigate your own career. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.